Okay.
You see it?
Go.
It's 5 o'clock on November the 26th. I'm going to call this meeting to order of Point Edward Village Council. First of all, the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land of the Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of the Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for those generations to come. Thank you. Anyone with pecuniary interest? Okay, as usual, if something comes up later, you can declare then. And moving on to the first item we have is planning. And we have our planner from the county, Jared Preston, here. And we have a guest tonight, also from the planning office.
So they're going to give us a bit of a review of the new provincial planning statement and the changes that affect the village of Point Edward. So turn things over to Jared.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, members of the public. My name is Jared Preston. I'm planner for the County of Lambton. I provide planning services as well to the village of Point Edward. Beside me is Maria Cosa Rossi. She's a senior planner from the County of Lambton and provides planning services to the town of Point Edward.
Welcome.
And today we're going to do an overview of the changes of the 2024 provincial planning statement. So we're just going to do an overview of the overall statement, and we're going to go over key changes from the former 2020 provincial policy statement. And we're going to highlight key provisions from the new PPS that are relevant to the village of Point Edward. And we're also going to go over the province's additional dwelling unit policies and how that's going to affect the village as well. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A period with members of council where they can ask us questions related to changes in policy. So the 2024 provincial policy statement officially replaced the 2020 provincial planning statement replaced the 2020 provincial policy statement on October 20th, 2024. And effective on October 20th, 2024, all planning recommendations and decisions by staff, municipal councils and committees, and the Ontario Land Tribunal must reflect the new 2024 PPS. So the purpose of the new PPS 2024 is to introduce significant changes in format and policy consolidation than the previous format. It also includes broader interpretations that considers other factors to get out balanced government priorities. So municipalities are required to supply enough land to meet a projected population needs of a minimum of 20 years to a maximum of 30 years. The only exception is for planning infrastructure, strategic growth areas, and employment areas. They may exceed that 30-year maximum horizon. And these projections came from the Ministry of Finance, and they are used for growth forecasting. And municipalities can modify these projections with their own local projections. So housing and land needs. So there's an emphasis across the province to increase diverse housing options in our municipalities. So more higher density, more medium density options to target affordable to low and moderate income households. So we're looking at semis, duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, and apartment buildings. And the affordable housing definition is based on average sale price and market rents at the municipal level. So there are new policies highlighted in terms of settlement boundary expansions. Just to bring up in Point Edward, the whole village is designated as a settlement area. So there's no immediate impacts with the new settlement boundary policies in the 2024 PPS. These policies will have a greater effect on the other municipalities across Lambton County that have more rural lands. So strategic growth areas. The 2024 PPS encourages municipalities to locate specific areas for strategic growth. The primary focus is on growth, intensification, mixed use, compact form, and public investment. There are certain areas that are going to be used to focus on public growth, which can be any brownfield sites, commercial areas that are underutilized, or any commercial areas along transit routes. And municipalities have the responsibility to establish and maintain minimum density targets for infill and redevelopment in built up areas. And municipal zoning bylaws are to be regularly updated with minimum density height and setbacks to facilitate and accommodate growth and development. So for employment areas are defined to focus primarily on industrial uses and research uses, while further protecting against conflicting land uses. Municipalities may consider removing these employment lands for other uses, only if there's additional sufficient employment lands available to accommodate the projected employment growth. Just to note that any conversion to a non-employment use does not require a municipal comprehensive review, but a number of criteria must be demonstrated as met, including the identified need for removal to minimize negative impacts on employment viability, the availability of infrastructure and public facilities, and sufficient employment land for projected growth. Also highlighting that development within 300 meters of employment areas must avoid or mitigate any potential impacts for future long-term employment uses. So the 2024 PPS continues to promote the efficient use of existing municipal services and private communal sewage and water services, meaning that existing municipal services are the promoted use, and then private communal sewage and water services come second. The allocation and reallocation of the used municipal water servicing capacity must be considered in meeting the needs for increased housing supply. So just to note that planning staff are further seeking clarification from the Ontario Ministry of Municipal Housing and Affairs for under which circumstances private and parcel servicing would be permitted. So this section is all about collaboration when dealing with development applications. So cultural and heritage and archaeology should be identified early in any planning process. There's an emphasis on local municipalities collaborating with service managers for land use planning and planning for housing. There will be there will continue to be collaboration with the conservation authorities. So in this area specifically, we collaborate with the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority early in the planning process if necessary. Not every site in Point Edward is under the SCRCA regulations, so we will look at it on a site-by-site basis. We will also continue to collaborate with school boards and child service providers in design and location of schools and child service facilities. And most importantly, we will consult with Indigenous communities early to identify, protect, and manage archaeological and heritage resources, coordinate on planning matters, Indigenous interests, and potential impacts on Aboriginal treaty rights. So this part two of this presentation, I'm going to specifically do an overview of the additional dwelling unit ADU policies that the province has put out and explain how that's going to have an effect on urban areas such as Point Edward. So we're going to start with just a definition of ADUs, additional dwelling units, and what an ADU is. So ADUs are additional units contained in either principal residential buildings, like a single or semi-detached dwelling, or an accessory building. ADUs are an excellent beginner housing option for downsizing or an opportunity for multi-generational housing. an ADU can exist in providing affordable housing options. So these are just various examples from some municipalities for ADUs. So the ADUs are highlighted in the orange, as you can see in the example. This comes from the municipality in North Perth. So the first example is a detached unit. The second one's a unit that's attached to the main dwelling. The third one is an interior upper level unit on the main dwelling. The fourth example is interior low level unit on the main dwelling. This one's an above garage unit with the attached garage. And the last one is a garage conversion that's attached to the main dwelling. This is an example that comes from Milton. And as it showed, the first one shows a converted garage and a basement conversion for an ADU. This one shows an attached ADU to the main dwelling. And this one just shows a detached ADU as well. And then the last one shows an attic conversion for an ADU, as well as a basement conversion. This last one is from the city of Calgary. And it's showing an example of backyard suite in a detached ADU. This one also shows the upper level of the detached building being used as an ADU. And then also a secondary suite being used on the main level, and then one in the basement there. So we're gonna go over ADU policy change that the province has put out. So the planning act originally enabled one additional dwelling unit, which all municipalities had to implement. Point Edward, currently their official plan and zoning bylaws applies to allow one additional dwelling unit in the main dwelling. So Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster Act, increased this to 2 ADUs on a parcel, either in a primary dwelling or an accessory building. So these changes took effect 2 years ago on November 28th, 2022, and these are mandatory changes. These changes override any municipal official plan and zoning bylaws, allowing as of right, without the need of rezoning development. These changes create inconsistencies with the current OP and zoning bylaw provisions. And these currently are creating inconsistencies with our official plan and zoning bylaws in the village. So I'm gonna just go over the specific changes for Bill 23. So currently, right now, this allows for 2 additional dwelling units in a single detached, semi-detached row townhouse, either as 2 ADUs in addition to the primary building, or 1 ADU in the primary building and 1 in an accessory building. And there's no minimum unit size required for these. So this bill is specifically preventing municipalities from enacting stricter regulations that would prohibit the ADU combinations below. So they would not require more than 1 parking stall per ADU. This bill also limits the tenancy of the ADU. And there are also no appeal on the number of ADUs allowed in our zoning bylaws. Also, with these changes to parking, a maximum of 1 parking stall shall be required per ADU, and the parking can be tandem. There is also no limitation on the occupancy of the ADU. The future tenant does not have to be in relation to the primary owner or the primary resident, nor does the owner have to reside on site. The date of the construction of the primary dwelling is not an issue with this bill at all either. ADUs are permitted regardless of the date of construction of the primary dwelling. These changes are going to have impacts on the parcels that are on municipal services, sewer, and water, which many of the parcels are in the village. So I'm also gonna go over Bill 185. This is also known as the Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act. And this was enacted earlier this spring, June 6, 2024. This would allow the minister to override specific provisions within our local zoning bylaws, including ADU provisions, in order to align with provincial goals and directives. So I'm gonna go over this specific proposed amendment, which is Ontario Regulation 299/19. And I'm just gonna be clear, this is a proposed amendment, so it hasn't come into effect as of now, but just a heads up, it could. So this was posted on the Environmental Registry of Ontario on September 23rd, 2024 for comments, which have ended on October 23rd, 2024. The proposed regulations aim to streamline the development of ADUs by reducing and eliminating rezoning or minor variances for ADUs in urban settlement residential lands. This proposed regulation would only apply to urban areas with full municipal servicing. So if this change comes into effect, it will have a huge impact on the village. So I'm just gonna go over some specific changes to this OREG. So first is the angular plane. So this will override all zoning requirements for buildings with ADUs. This one as well, maximum lot coverage. So right now, for our singles and semis, we generally have, depending on the zone, we have a 30 and 35% max lot coverage for those types of buildings. If this amendment were to come into effect, that'd go up to 45%. Max lot coverage will be applied to all buildings and structures on parcels with ADUs. And there would also be a change to the floor space index. This would override all floor space index requirements that apply to parcels with ADUs. Also, there'd be changes with the minimum lot size and lot area. This would remove all minimum lot size or lot area requirements that are specific with parcels that have ADUs. It would change the building distance separation. It would limit building distances containing ADUs to a maximum of 4 meters. And just a final note, these are changes to the setbacks that are currently in our zoning bylaw. If this would come into effect, this has no effect on any public health and safety concerns or comments that come in. No changes to the building and fire code requirements. And the Conservation Authorities Act would continue to apply as well. So thank you for your time, and I'm open to any questions from council or the public.
Let's go first.
I can kick it off if you wish. 2 questions.
Jared?
Hey, Jordan. Jared, how are you? First question is about the maximum lot coverage. So we know it's 30, 35, and almost every home that gets built, we're asked for a minor, we are not asked, but a minor variance is requested to go up to 37, 39. If it changes to 45, can that variance request be eliminated? Because they're going to start asking for 47, 49, 52. And if we're going up to 45, it should be, that's it. Like there's no variances is what I feel.
Like a cap.
Yeah, cap, yeah.
So, if it does go up to the 45, even if the zone bylaw is not amended to reflect the 45, the minister's regulation, if it is in place, it will override the current zoning.
Mhm.
However, it would still be subject to a minor variance if someone wished to apply, but it would need to meet the 4 tests for a minor variance. And really, with consideration for the servicing capacity, there will be a number of things that would be looked at. So it is possible, but again, it would rest the committee to make that determination whether they would approve it or not.
But we all know give an inch, take a mile, right? So, yeah. And my second question through the mayor. I think I read on a slide, there could be 2 ADUs in each side of a semi-detached. So is it safe to say there'd be 4 residential units in a semi potentially?
Very much. So the legislation currently through Law 23 and 185 it mandates that each residential lot in settlement area that's connected, these are only residential lots connected to municipal services such as water and sanitary sewer. So in those cases, and it applies to single detached, semi-detached and lower townhouse, they use those terms interchangeably. So it brings the residential use up to a maximum of 3 per lot, so the primary dwelling and the 2 additional residential units. So yes, it is possible to have a total of 3 per semi-detached.
So 6 on the lot. Yeah,
Technically, yes, although each semi is delineated by their own
Right.
property dimensions. Now, I should mention that the additional residential units, the legislation, it allows for the primary plus the 2 in the dwelling. Or it allows for the primary dwelling plus 1 additional unit in the primary dwelling and 1 in the detached. So in the detached, it's only ever the 1 that's mandated currently now. Municipality wish to change that and let's say increase the number from the 3 that are committed to 4. Some municipalities are doing that. There's one that's possibly doing 5. But there's a number of considerations when we're looking at this, and servicing capacity is one of those.
and just a quick follow-up. The reason I ask is there's a trend in this municipality for, smaller, older homes to be torn down, a semi to be built there. And, people are concerned about the density and the change to the village. And so it's just the fact that there could technically, where there was 1 house today, we could have 6 dwelling units on that same piece of land, right? And I know that there's a goal to increase density, but it seems odd, but that's the end of my questioning.
Mhm.
So the current legislation mandates no minimum sizes because our zoning bylaws usually will indicate, a bachelor has to have a minimum square meter for the unit and the 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and so on. But there's nothing in the legislation to say that there can't be a maximum to these units, and I think those are considerations that when it comes time to draft the amendments to the zoning that can be undertaken. It's just at this point, we don't know what the minister's regulation would look like. They're reviewing the comments. But all we know is what's being proposed. There has been quite a bit of commentary on the increase to the 45%. And this would not be the only municipality with those concerns. There are a number that are very concerned with that. But there is going to be a level of control to ensure the orderly development of these through your zoning as much as we know that we're able to do through the zoning.
Sorry, to Deputy Mayor Brian's question around the multiple units. I think one potential control is number of parking spaces. Is that where you have control? Somewhat? Space per unit?
Yeah,
Like-
so it's up to a maximum, the planning act will allow for up to a maximum of 1 parking space per unit. So if there's 3 units on the lot, then, and you would need to double check what the requirement is, for the, residential dwelling in your residential zones here, but if it is 1 there and then you have 2 additional units, then you potentially require 3. You can't require more than 1 specifically for the additional residential unit. The act does not allow for more than 1. There are some municipalities that are considering waiving that to 0. But it's really dependent on the municipality and the needs. It's not something that in certain areas would be appropriate, but the province has mandated that it can't be more than 1 for the additional residential unit.
Just follow up on the mayor's comment. I think it said the parking spots could be in tandem. Does that mean all 3 could just be in a driveway and they have to move their vehicles to get in and out? So it wouldn't be 3 separate spots. They could all just line up.
Through the mayor, that would be correct.
So would it be safe to say, I mean, this legislation is taking control away from the municipalities on what we allow to have and build.
Yeah, through the mayor, that's why we brought this presentation up. It's gonna restrict what we can enforce through our zoning bylaws, specifically if this proposed OREG 29919 comes into place, we'll have no control over the lot coverage. And there is gonna be an issue with those smaller lots with them having the adequate amount of servicing to be able to contain additional dwelling units. That's one of our major concerns.
I have a question for the mayor. We have a number of variances every year for garages or accessory buildings. Everybody wants bigger, as Deputy Mayor Grimes said. What are the provisions when we allow a variance or a change in size for an accessory building? The provision states that we will not allow it to become a living or dwelling unit. Now, with this change in the regs, is that we no longer can put that in there because it from what it says, the bill, that they are now allowed.
Yeah, so through the mayor, the zoning bylaws will have to be updated to be consistent with this new Bill 23 provincial policy. And that's just gonna have to get added in writing, but they have as of right to have those accessory buildings as dwelling units.
That was one of the standard provisions we always
Yeah.
put in. Okay, thank you.
For you, Richard, to the council, I just would like to add that there are some stipulations that indicate that because these additional residential units are mandated, does not necessarily mean that that is justification to enlarge the detached accessory buildings. So it is not necessarily mean that the tests to approve and through my variance, the size of the garage, those tests need to be met. But there is literature to indicate that the addition of residential unit is not justification to then enlarge these accessory structures to be even larger than the dwellings at times for the test comes in, so there is that assurance in place.
Thank you.
And then, related to that train of thought, it's not gonna be a free-for-all where everybody can throw up an apartment in the garage. There has to be controls through the fire department and all of the safety concerns and public health.
Yeah, so through the mayor, as I stated in the presentation as well, even if that OREG 29919 comes in. Fire code building requirements are all in place, even with Bill 23, that doesn't change. Bill 23 has an effect on ADUs. Not being able to, no one is required to rezone or redesignate an ADU if they meet those requirements, especially if they're already on a residential lot. If these OREG changes come in, it further restricts what planning staff can enforce regarding max lot coverage. Minimum lot area, etc. Building permits will still need to meet, building permits will still be required and they have to meet building code as well.
I just wanted to make that point then, that there is some control over, it's not like the Wild West. But it will be a big change.
Another question?
Yeah.
Let's see, no, I lost it. Oh, okay, short-term rentals. There's becoming an abundance of those in different communities, and I know within the village, there's a few at least. With this regulation, does that make it more difficult for a municipality to manage a short-term rental? Because you don't have to have a principal resident on site or whatever, or are these you're looking at long-term rentals if they're an ADU? You understand?
So through the mayor, Maria Town Putnam has been working on short-term rental policies there. And I'm gonna pass it on to her to give some specific details of how they've been dealing with those.
Through your worship, Counselor. So, staff are still looking into the short-term rental component. To date, it's our understanding that the additional residential units are meant to be a non-payment component. So it's not, the goal is not to enhance the short term, which is usually 28 days or less. But we are looking into seeing if there are some additional restrictions through the planning act, so we don't have a full response for you this evening. But it is the goal and intent of the legislation that there's be more permanent housing to provide an affordable option or multi-generational housing. So it's meant to be more permanent in the landscape as opposed to something that's temporary.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Everyone follow? What are next steps? What's gonna happen?
Yeah, so through the mayor, in terms of Bill 23, if someone comes, gives me a call, asks to have an additional dwelling unit. It would be a permitted use on a residential lot. We would still be able to enforce as of now, without the new OREG in, we'd be able to enforce those things in the zoning bylaw such as setbacks, lot coverage, minimum lot size. But in terms of them being permitted or not, we have no control over that anymore. So it's just a wait and see with the new OREG coming in to see if we even have any further limitations regarding our zoning provisions.
And a letter or a petition or talking to people, it's not gonna change. This train's left the station, has it? Is that your opinion?
I can't assume any trends at all at this moment.
Yeah.
We're acting on what's in effect as of now. We just have to go by Bill 23 and wait and see on the other proposed amendment to see if it comes through and make things a little bit more difficult for us.
The primary mandate of the new legislation is to ensure that there are no prohibitions in the official plan and in the zoning to not permit the additional residential units. So if there is currently in the zoning, something that can be used to allow them, so let's say it's setbacks or there's we can't use to the minimum size, anything in the zoning that requires a minimum size for an additional residential unit, that can no longer apply because it's overridden by the legislation that states no minimum size. So, but if there is anything else, for example, you have already an additional dwelling unit in the zoning, as long as those provisions don't, they're not working in conflict with the current legislation, then temporarily until you amend your zoning, you can use those. Because you already have something in place that you can sort of structure around that. You would just have to omit the sections that would no longer apply, would be the ones that would be in conflict with the legislation. So that would be a temporary fix. If this was a municipality that didn't have any thing in their zoning or their official plan for additional residential units, whether it's one or more than one, then what has been used in another municipality was the accessory building regulations. So in those, they stipulate, what the setbacks are, where it can be located, whether it's a front yard, the rear yard, the interior yard, and then the size, so the square footage or the square meters, and then the height. So the height so far has not been something that's been mandated or regulated. That is still something that the municipality has control over. So there are certain things we just need to look at the zoning and be able to determine what we can apply and what can't be applied. There has been, I would like to say, it is a lot of information and it feels intrusive in a lot of ways. But overall, we are looking to see what the trends are because a lot of our municipalities are working to update the zoning because that is what will give us control to ensure that there's orderly development and that we can manage any conflicts that come up, especially when it comes to servicing as an example, but also there's other considerations as well, whether the lots are large enough to be able to accommodate these units and what form these units will actually, how they will actually be developed. But we have not really received, there hasn't been a very large uptake on these. Some of the inquiries that are coming in are usually for those that are looking to maybe have an additional residential unit for a family member on the site. There are some that are interested in the ability to be able to build up their lot for, you know, as rentals. But we really haven't seen, an increased uptake on this since, and the legislation has been, you know, mandating this since 2022. So, you know, we're still gonna, some of us are gonna have a look at the trends in other municipalities to get a sense as to what kind of uptake. But again, it depends on the municipality and how large they are and their own circumstances.
I think we appreciate that. Awesome.
This might be outside of what we've been discussing, but is there any way that municipalities can motivate owners of vacant properties to build on to provide more housing?
I'm gonna turn to Maria this thing.
Just my thought is we seem to be wanting to put a lot on existing housing and lots, and yet I know there's a lot of municipalities that might have vacant land that's owned. That, is there any way to utilize empty space?
For your worship, the official plan policies would guide that. There's usually policies in place to encourage infilling. In terms of other motivations, there could be maybe some, depending on if that infill lot is being developed for affordable housing, because now the Development Charges Act has actually provided a definition for that, whether it's someone who's purchasing or someone who's renting. The specifically for affordable housing, as long as it meets the definitions in the act, and even the additional residential units, they will be exempted from development charges. So that is an incentive for builders. But other incentives would depend really on the municipality if they want to relax some of the zoning, or if there's funding. It could be a number of different initiatives. It just depends on how the municipality wants to move forward with that.
One of the discussions is around GST and the potential for, I just been reading about it, eliminating GST on new builds for a period of time to help more interest in generating new builds. Whether or not that happens, I'm not sure. Any other questions? Well, that's a lot. I appreciate appreciate what you've delivered to us tonight. It's a lot to take in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Said you were gonna talk about it?
No,
No.
that's off the agenda now.
Oh, it's on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we just move on to the adoption minutes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
We do need a resolution to receive and file the report from the
Oh,
planner.
thank you. Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of receiving that? Thank you. Adoption of minutes.
I'll move that the minutes from October 22nd and November 12th be adopted as circulated.
Any questions?
Yes, I have a question on the November 12th minutes. Here, it looks like from the section in planning, items 1 and 2 that were on our agenda that are in the minutes for that November 12th.
Right. Okay,
So
I'll remove that. Yep.
Yep.
All in favor? Okay, then. Moving on to financial reports. General operations and environmental services, October.
Move that the total revenues and general operations for the month of October 2024 in the amount of $563,898.94 be approved. And that the total expenditures and general operations for the month of October 2024 in the amount of $1,401,338.70 be approved.
I'll second that.
Question? All in favor? Environmental services.
I'm trying to open
Oh, sure.
it. Sorry. That the total revenues and environmental services for the month of October 2024 in the amount of $0 be approved. And that the total expenditures in environmental services for the month of October 2024 in the amount of $231,573.79 be approved. And that the updated financial statements for the month of September 2024 showing revenues of $191,794.41 and expenditures of expenditures in $88,877.53 being received.
I'll second.
Questions? All in favor? Okay. Move on to committee reports. First one is operations. On November 12th.
I'll move that the minutes of the operations committee meeting held November 12th be approved as circulated.
Thank you.
I have some highlights in those meetings, that meeting if I could. In the public works report for October, it was mentioned that extension cords are going to be provided for the setting up of light up the cul-de-sac event for Christmas, which that's going to start or take place on December 6th of 2024. It was also mentioned that Lambton County Libraries now recycle used batteries, and Point Every Library is one of them. So pass that information out to our residents that you can take your batteries to the library. The operations manager reviewed the speed spy data on Michigan and Front Street for the month of October. Also, we found out that the Venetian Boulevard speed sign has been installed. And some next steps, because of the volumes of traffic and speeds and that, it was questioned if that will impact the types of crosswalks that are planned for installation on Michigan Ave. And it was clarified that the current plan already exceeds the requirements of ensuring that all TXO crossings will be classified as type C crossings when they're put in next year, I guess. And it was also mentioned about sponsorship opportunities at a meeting be held with a representative of each of the four major user groups to secure advertising for our arena. And also, I'm a member of the Lambton County Regional Trails Committee, and we had some share the road magnets that I brought back to the village. And I distributed some to the local bike shop, and we've got some out at the front desk for anybody who wants to put them on your vehicle. And additionally, if the municipality desires, they can request more magnets from me, and they can be placed on village fleet vehicles. So that's all about trying to keep our cyclists safe. And that's all I've got to report.
I have one question, please, if I may. Through you to probably to Mike. Is there a status on the live barn installation? It's the number one question right now.
Yes, through your worship, the live barn equipment is located at the arena. The Cogeco has confirmed that there is a connection into the building. We are waiting for live barn to actually come and physically do the installations. And speaking with Derek, a Monday or a Thursday will be the best, and we're hoping it could potentially be as early as next Thursday.
Okay, appreciate that.
All in favor? Okay, move on to fire committee.
Thank you. I'll move that the minutes of the fire committee meeting we held November 12th, 2024 be approved and circulated.
That's okay.
Thank you. You said that together.
Councillor Noctor.
Yeah, thank you. Not a lot in there. We did add another, a responder, so they've moved up from recruit to responder status. We, had our emergency simulation, this month, and it went, well. Fire drills are being held at the Starlight and Health units, in the upcoming. The new engine is expected in early 2027, but there could be delays, so we're just monitoring that. And the cost to do our yearly inspections on our trucks has increased because the MTO have moved up what's required to pass the inspection, so it's gonna be costing us more money to do the annual inspections. I mean, that's all there.
Any questions? All in favor? Okay, environmental services, Laura 12.
Hydrant number 63, located on St. Clair Street, is sapping the first road.
Which is good. Any questions?
Can I make a motion to, adopt?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any questions?
I just have a question about hydrant 63. So was it not captured in the road project to be replaced? Like, are we doing work that they should have done?
Yeah, it is in the second phase.
Yeah.
Right.
Fortunately, when
Yeah.
we had to operate that hydrant with Boston and
Okay.
it's all the photo party for the repaired and then we're artist. So we do emergency. We did check with the with MIG, they confirmed that we could not fix it because it didn't have the required coverage. We got the bag for delivery.
Yeah.
So it had to be put back into service. Sound good.
And will we get a credit from the project for the fact that we've done the work?
We'll get a credit for the value of the hydrant,
Okay,
not.
any labor. Okay. Thank you. That's all.
All in favor? Thank you. Finance committee.
Move that the committee meeting minutes of November 12th for the finance committee be adopted as circulated.
We'll second that.
A couple highlights coming up in December that we talked about, like the cul-de-sacs on December the 6th. Christmas in the village is December the 7th. And we also mentioned about the City of Sarnia Santa Claus Parade because we're active participant in that. And that the Grand Fondo Slow Roll raised $10,000, which was donated to Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and they rolled through most of Point Edward that day. One other item I'd like to highlight is our event coordinator Shelley threw a wonderful appreciation night for our employees. Was well attended and there are a lot of great compliments from that. And a reminder that the Point Edward Fire and Rescue is still taking unwrapped toys for their Santa's Responders Toy Drive up until December the 12th at the fire hall or municipal office.
Did you get a second?
Yes, it was myself.
Okay. All in favor? Sorry. Yeah, all in favor. Thank you. Okay, Melissa, miscellaneous reports.
I'll move that the building permit report be received and filed.
I'll second.
Are there any questions? All in favor? Thank you.
Adjustment meeting minutes as well.
Move item 2.
Oh, I was thinking he was looking at, sorry. Committee of Adjustment, we'll do that separately.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Okay. Number 13. What is this one?
So this is a response to the OPP
Okay.
cost increases.
Okay,
Um,
all right, yeah.
I just questioning whether we can move this to the camera discussion about just raising, we're not really a small rural community, and if we bring attention to ourselves, I don't know, I'm just wondering without saying what I'm trying to say.
I think just about every community is coming out with the same letter. So I don't have a concern about
Just
that myself.
if you read the motion, it talks
Mhm.
about rural communities, and I don't see us as rural, and given our situation with our neighbors and policing, I just would like to speak more openly in camera about whether we support this.
Yeah,
But
You want to table it? Till December 3rd?
I think that's reasonable.
to put it in camera then, or,
I'll review that and see if I think we should be able to.
okay,
I would like, we may not consider ourselves rural, but the government does.
true, yeah. yeah.
So, I mean, I just want to say that.
And the other option is we just wordsmith this motion
Mhm.
and to better reflect our situation, that we're not truly, I know what you mean, we're classified always as rural, but given, and I'm just saying, given the relationship with our neighboring police and that stuff, I just trying to be sensitive to that.
Okay. So motion to table.
Table to December 3rd meeting? Mhm. Okay, okay, all in favor, sorry, of tabling, thank you. Number 14, with let's go, I'd say 1 through 5, Amo,
I'll move that 1 through 5. You receive and file.
I'll second
all in favor? And then the next one is St. Clair Conservation,
I'll move
they
it.
both are, so we could talk
Oh,
about.
yep. I'll move that 6 and 7 be received and filed. And I just want to highlight in the September minutes, there was a reference to the St. Clair River, which is of interest to us, and the work's continuing to restore the river and engage local communities on the efforts to delist the river from the list of Great Lakes areas of concern. And there's been a couple of events and activities related to that. So we are making progress, the Conservation Authority, in getting the river off that list. So
You done with the second?
yes.
All in favor? Thank you. Move on to new business. So the topic is vintage in the village, and that was the car show. I think we had 4 months of car show over this summer.
So Jennifer took the lead on organizing a lot of the entertainment and such for those events last summer. And we were looking to get approval to start the process if council wishes to continue with that. To start the event start the planning a little bit earlier. Booking bands and such in to do that event. Last year we budgeted $10,000 for 4 events. We're requesting to do a 5th event in September. So we're just looking for approval if we can go ahead and plan on spending 12.5 on that Vintage in the Village series for the summer of 2025. And then there's also a summary of what we accomplished last year, who raised what money, all that kind of thing.
Questions?
Oh,
Councilor
You want
Burgess?
someone to move it first before?
Oh, sorry, I need that
Yeah, I
before
was
we
gonna
can talk.
move so we
Thank
can
you.
talk about it.
Yeah, thank you.
1 second.
Hey, you want to start?
My first question is, do we have to decide where the money comes from for that before? I realize we
Not
have-
particularly. It was a capital item last year, and I would propose that it would be the same.
You mean that tax?
No,
No,
Yeah, it was Matt Tax last year.
I saw this more of a tourism event,
That's
so
what
I
I
thought
do
that
too.
would be a good spot, but I didn't know if we had to discuss where that money was gonna come from first.
yeah. If you wish to state that we're gonna pay for it out of the MAT tax, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that.
If I can make a comment on that, last year it was 7,000 from that tax, and we were supposed to take the 3,000 farmers market reserve, top it up to 10. Right, so this year we're asking for 12.5. I agree, we can give it 12.5, but from that tax, but I'd be looking to save $2,500 somewhere else in the budget. We can make a note of that. We're, the MAC tax money. We do have a project, long-term project we're saving money for, so if we can, even 2,500, we can pull some of that. Find something else that we use less of that tax money. And
Is there any way to cut this particular budget item? How did 10,000 work this year?
We spent like 9,600 or something of it,
93.
93. So, I mean, the big expense, so it's about $900 to rent the tent. I think,
It was 5,000 for the tent.
Prices.
right,
And Jega was very cheap because he was the very first one.
Mhm.
So he only charged us, I think it was 500 and something. I don't see that happening again for that, and also adding another, thing on. Plus
So,
the 10.
like live entertainment, we're looking, I think there's
About a grand.
we paid,
About a grand.
yeah.
For each one.
So basically 1,000 to rent a tent, 1,000 to book the band. So you're 2,000 just on those two items
Yeah.
for, and there's, I mean, a bit of advertising. We didn't spend a lot on advertising, but.
Well, I think it brought a lot of people in, over the 4 months, so hopefully there was some spin-off. To the businesses.
Do we have a rough number of what kind of crowds the event drew in?
The number of cars, so I think the first night was about 150. The second night was a bit smaller because we had rain. The third night was like 260 or something like that.
It was very big.
And then the final night, going by memory here, but I think it was, and I was thinking it was somewhere between 125 and 150.
And do
And
you have
that's- we-
feedback from the businesses surrounding that, about the event?
Just like anecdotal things, like nothing, I didn't do a survey or anything like that, just comments made that it was busy on those nights, like, and I mean, Albert, there was a constant stream, but there might be a constant stream every
Yeah,
night, like, I
yeah.
don't know, it's hard to say. The most feedback I got from it was that we should start earlier in the day.
Yes.
And that's a hard thing to do because the car club supplies the volunteers to arrange all the parking and they work, so getting them there earlier is kind of the limiting factor there, but yeah, I wouldn't say there was a whole lot of feedback from Don that runs the food truck. He said, like, I talked to him a couple days after the first event and he said it was just crazy busy that night. Busier than normal, so.
I would really like to see this happen again this year. I'm just wondering if, moving forward, if we can kind of have a way of figuring out for the years in the future, if the event is considered successful and whether we should continue to grow the budget for it in future years. Or how we decide, whether that is like a survey and businesses keeping track of who is attending demographic wise and whether we're seeing increased tourism in the area. Something along those lines for future decisions on this.
I'd say the most feedback we got was from the actual car owners.
Mhm.
And one that was said to me a couple of times, because I also was involved in a car show in Petrolia at the nursing home and they said we needed to just have a donation jar. And the car owners are used to putting money into a donation jar and they give more than asking them for $5. Is it $5? I think they asked. She said,
We didn't ask them for anything.
What-
Oh, out there.
no, here, like
the 50.
they said they thought you should have a donation jar
Mhm.
because they'll tend to throw in $20 and it helps the charities. That was just a little thing about money raising.
Yeah, and I know that, of course, it's great that we're able to help facilitate those donations for those charities. I'm just wondering, at what point would we consider this event continually a success for the village in terms of attraction and tourism or not? And of course, this year it was last minute and we would have to look at that over future years. I would just like to see the event go, but I wouldn't want to continue to add more and more money over time if we weren't
Mhm.
quantifying that with something.
It's,
Go ahead.
I was gonna, the demographics, it's hard because with uncontrolled access to the park, I mean, we have no idea if all those people that are milling out about, if they're people that came in the cars or if they're people that came otherwise. We have to, so that may be difficult, but we can talk to, like, I can talk to Tourism Sarnia and see if they have any ideas on how to gain some of that information and if there is any economic spin-off, how they, I mean, they have calculations. For instance, for that U17 tournament, how many dollars they figure that generated for the community, so they might be able to help me. Some metrics, maybe.
I think that would be great. Thank you.
Dr. McGrath?
Thank you, Mary Ann. So when I pitched this as part of our budget last year, the goal was to take our crown jewel, that park, and get more people exposed to it and increase the use of it. And I think it achieved those goals. We altered from the original plan, but the alteration really worked well. I think the cars were really the attraction. I initially pitched music only, but the cars really got people there. And so I think it was a resounding success that way. The only thing I'd ask if we go to 5 is that we give consideration to the businesses outside the downtown core to see if we can run either a beer sampling or allow other businesses to sell wares or something like that, like Red and Co sandwiches, because it's over the supper break, or the Flakery Bakery, anything over there, to see if they want to participate and bring them down into the park.
Yeah,
So,
my idea is a bake sale,
okay,
like have a bake sale where any business, because
Yeah.
that way you're not selling something that competes, like if you're selling sandwiches, you are competing with the trucks that are down there,
right.
and pay to be
Yeah.
there, where there isn't, there's a few businesses in town that could support a bake sale.
Right, yeah,
And so that was just the idea I had.
yeah. But I think if we can, somehow,
Mhm.
or even signage to let people know that there's
Sure.
businesses over on St. Clair and Lighter there would be a bonus. No, I support, I think it was so nice to see that park just packed with people, cars, and people milling about and talking and even running into old friends. It was just it was a
Socializing, yeah.
real good village night.
Years ago, we ran a couple times in the park, a craft sale with a lot of local products and vendors. No food, it wasn't food, it was all about crafts and vendors, and it ran down towards waterfront. It's just an idea, if people want to come in and run a table, to add to what you have down there. But we've got time to think about.
The nice thing about the event is it kind of organizes
Yeah.
itself. I mean, Jen spent a fair little bit of time in say the month of April, organizing which charity we're gonna work with and which bands are gonna be in. And, she spent a few days, I would say, parts of different days. The day of the event, it basically organizes itself. I mean, I was there a couple of times, I think Mike was there once or twice. And we would have a summer student, I think, and a regular public works, or two summer students there. Just to be there to pick up garbage or whatever they might be needed to do to block off the path so people don't drive their car down the path. But it really was the day of the event didn't create a whole lot of extra work for anyone, so it was nice. They looked after the parking. We greeted people as they drove into the parking lot or into the entrance, but it was really, I mean, the band guy would come in and set up the tent, the band would come in and look after their piece. Now that we have that permanent electrical station there, there's no work, that saved a lot of work for the public works guys. So it is a nice, simple event to do on that day.
No, I think it's money well spent to booster the waterfront park and bring more people down to the waterfront. Mike.
Thank you. I was just curious, as we mentioned, some of the summer students were there. It might be possible to ask them to collect data if we can find some information from the tourism. And then have a survey, they could walk around and collect some data for us to further give some quantitative details that might support a little bit more.
Even like how far people came to be there, right? 'Cause I know,
Just some simple questions.
I know some cars came from Strathroy and the like.
Okay, so was there a motion?
There is a recommendation there,
Recommendation.
that the duration of the monthly. That's the second part of it.
You'll move it if you want.
We've already got a mover, I thought.
Yeah, Paul made a
Oh,
motion.
did you?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, sorry, Paul.
So we just have to vote now.
Yeah,
If we're in
okay.
favor of that
All-
motion.
All in favor? Okay, that's carried.
That
Okay,
was the only new business item that I had listed.
does anybody have anything they need to add to new business?
Just one item that I've been asked to bring forward, and it's from the businesses on Light Street, it's about the road closed signs being left up. Is there a reason why, is the road considered still closed because the paving hasn't been finished? Or, and there's still, I saw them doing some paving today, because especially
It's
the one
still
at
an
the,
open construction site.
okay,
I can ask if they have a rough timeline on when they think they might take the signs down, but they may stay up all year. I don't know.
yeah. Because the one at the other end of St. Clair Street is right actually in the middle of the road, and can it not be
Moved
slid?
off.
It
Yeah.
has been moved to the side.
To the side.
Our engineer is currently in discussions with Coke to find out what the next stages are in terms of what the winter will look like.
Right,
It'll also help for any egress in terms of our plowing down that space.
yeah,
That's something we're working on. Once we have the information, we can certainly pass it on.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next one is, actually, Paul, Paul's already said. I had light up the cul-de-sac, so that starts at 6 o'clock on December 6th. Christmas in the Village, December 7th is at 11, and Santa Claus Parade. And we are putting in our antique fire truck and the golf cart into the procession. And that's December 7th, and I believe it also starts at 6. So those are the upcoming Christmas events. Bylaws.
I have another, the library is going to be closed
Oh, right. yes.
from December 9th to 13th. They're replacing all the flooring. That's one of our capital projects. And the county is looking after the work. We just get to pay for it. But the library will be closed generally from December 9th to 13th.
And I had a resident mention to me that they thought that was an excessive length of time for
Mhm.
closure. But then they realized that all those books have to be moved out in order to be laying floor, so I guess it was okay. The Sharon. Yeah.
With Christmas in the Village, my understanding is Michigan Ave will be closed from St. Clair to Livingston.
Mhm.
What's the process to notify businesses and residents in that area?
I believe Shelley's told them all already. I know she's.
I'm not sure the residents know. I only know because I'm involved,
Mhm.
but you know,
Good point. Okay.
because I gotta make alternate arrangements that day to keep vehicles out. Right, so I'm assuming there will be a hard block at St. Clair, so no cars can get down. Or is there a way to have access out?
Yes, yeah, so the idea, as I last understood, was there will be a barricade with some pylons on each side, which will allow egress around.
Okay.
Just though there will be a road closed sign, which is to make sure any emergency vehicles, or in case of snow, if we do have to salt or be able to service that, we'll have that, so.
Okay. Because I know there's, if the residents should be aware,
No, that's a good point.
There's apartment building, 2 apartment buildings and out there as well. So. Thank you.
There's no bylaw.
No bylaws.
Okay, so we're moving on, we need to adjourn to an in-camera session now. So we'll say goodbye to our visitors. I always feel like we're kicking the boot, but we appreciate you coming.
Cam will take a couple magnets. So you said? Yeah, take right.
They're just on the front counter there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're back next week for an encore, so we'll see you then.
Okay.
Okay,
December is moved up 1 week.
yeah, December 3rd. We're up a week.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
Y'all moved it. Did somebody move us to on camera?
Not
Okay,
yet.
I'll move it. Paul
I
seconded.
just
We have something meeting.
asked them to leave and now we. So who moved it?
I did. Paul seconded it.
Okay, all in favor? There you go.